Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs and later in the Ministry of Labor and Employment. From these vantage positions, I saw that he was a fierce stickler for hierarchical order and discipline. The Buhari I know will never, ever sacrifice hierarchy. Once a subordinate can no longer work with a superior, no matter how close that subordinate was to President Buhari, the subordinate will be sacrificed in order for, and as Minister of State, I enjoyed that support from him. Only very few to reinvent nonsense and stern that the nation chose to defeat a behemoth ruling party and the sitting president in 2015, free and fair democratic thrilling fictional movies are made. That is why for millions of people, he was an enigma in life, an enigma in death. He oscillated from one perception to the extreme, to the other extreme perception that was diametrically different from the first, and used to qualify a quintessential patriot, a fine officer, and an exceptional statesman. He came, he fought, and he conquered. Goodbye, Marigayi. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Minister.
Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, Your Excellency, the Vice President, the All Progressive Governors Forum, members of the executive, wishes of a leader, President Muhammadu, former President Muhammadu Buhari, currently as chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum, as well as participating in numerous ad hoc assignments to which he appointed me. To say that is a baptism of fire on the test of his humility, when 10 days to the general election in 2015, a very close and he instructed Hadith, this is personal to him, immediately protested that at that time in our national life it will be impossible for him to visit any place, and it is kept a secret. But he said I should do my best. So he came to Birnin Kebbi. Everyone along the route knows that our way back, village, and in fact, strengthen the national acceptance of the challenges that were facing us as a nation, because he was even surprised salaries and so on and so forth. But because issues were the national previously had told us, he interrogated and stated the problems he encountered in a very, very nationalistic and patriotic manner. He decided to deal with it head on. So the economic person was in addition to battling COVID incidences, but he will remain undoubted. On 2 personal incidences, 7 governors, including 5 Sokoto, Katsina, and Kaduna states, as well as Niger and Plateau, because by service commanding officers, police commissioners of our state at Kaduna, and we came up with a budget of 7. Regrettably, he told us that there was no money. So let us go and make a contribution, and he will refund us later. So the states contributed 100, has improved significantly. As a result of Rasuwar's program with the mantra, let us eat what we grow and grow what we eat. I was privileged to be both the chairman of the Presidential Task Force on Rice and Wheat, as well as vice chairman. The sentiment is so strong that the service chiefs could do better. And why wouldn't he consider making changes? But the noble person that he is, he could not provide what they truly required of him to do the job. He said he will never do so with integrity. And Your Excellency, just in conclusion, he was concerned about Nigeria, especially his relationship with you and the party. In the forerun to the National Convention of our party, and all highlighting his respect for rule of law and saying, literally serving as a warning that he won 16th March letter 2022, he said, "It has come to my attention that because of recent events, the APC is, as a result of this, the party faces the possibility and prospect of the invalidation of all elections and probably ultimately," he said, "our candidate, stranger, I look forward to working closely with APC governors to support Senator Aswaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and all our APC candidates to success. Your Excellency, in all humility, I condole you on the loss of your brother, as he described in this letter, President Muhammadu Buhari, of blessed memory, as well as the Vice.
Mr. Chairman, President of the Senate, Mr. Chairman, President of the Senate, System Protocol. Formatrically, I will say in that encompasses Borno, Yobe is pro, that encompasses Borno, Yobe is pro-poor policies, the infrastructural upgrades, his novel efforts at instilling social justice, ignited in 1976 in Borno State, Colonel Buhari at best administrative offices, civil service structures, state setup, which ensured a smooth start for the new state and all the other state governments in the region. Years later, as was mentioned, as Federal Commissioner of Petroleum Resources, we saw thousands of kilometers of new oil pipelines, new fuel depots, and a new as the nation's head of state. We witnessed at that time, I was very young, how his war on indiscipline brought sanity and efficiency into our public spaces, into our marketplaces, and in fact, millions of textbooks getting their way to our academic institutions, potable water finding its way to the most far-reaching areas which reach every nook and cranny of our country. So much of this was then popularly labeled as PTF. This was then popularly labeled as PTF projects, which we own the progressive forces of Paja's party in 20. We own the progressive forces of Paja's party in 20. Our region. It is now evidently clear, with the leadership that we are witnessing, manifesting the progressive ideology that are the onslaught of best and mass words of were being brutally pushed into office, and effective restoring understanding that the country, and especially in many universities and colleges, structural projects, and in social projects, and in social investment, several programs which have continued with the COVID-19 crisis under his stern leadership in education and the social investments. All these are the foundations. President Buhari can testify that President Buhari was an authentic, genuine leader. Those that follow him, those that love him can see that. Integrity that is widely acclaimed. Thirdly, he served with humility. I think we have already heard about that. The truism that in fact, that is true. Doesn't take himself too seriously. As we have heard, he regularly cracked jokes with friends, all a fine conclusion. Amen. Thank you, Mr. President.
The governors here in Nigeria, in moments like this, on a life-defining historic moment for a greater tomorrow, Karl Marx said, determining the social for a greater tomorrow. Karl Marx said, determining the social consciousness. consciousness. A departed president began his journey to peace and inspired selfless nationalism. They explained the simplicity of his style, realism. In trials and triumphs, he held steadfastly and studiously to this value, guidance. The leaders of the then northern Nigeria saw that the military will play major roles in the new Nigeria forming in the 1950s. The regionalist and devolved nature of the federal constitution by Sir Arthur Richards, Sir Oliver Littleton, and Sir John Macpherson disrupted the colonial order's authoritarian when the headhunters of the north into the military value meant to give his people a vote. He was meant to give his people an adult shot in a book in the coups and counter early at the end of 1983, ending the 4-year rule of the Shagari civilian administration. Few were shocked. We were not shocked. As a commander, it sought to restore our integrity from the social anomie of the previous era. Personal freedom. He expected Nigerians to follow him. He saw libertarians and civic groups as obstacles to his mission and tried to coerce them. He believed the end would justify his means. He trusted his conscience would clear him of 1985. Allah saved him as he was. Those 18 months in power might have been marked by some draconian excesses, yet later it became difficult to match masses in the law to protect the poor, with the dream, to protect the poor, with the dream real. Leader whose Lord for they will real. Leader whose Lord for they will bid farewell, not only to a man, but to an inspiration. A leader whose unwavering devotion to faith and remaining greatness, the crashes of greatness, the crashes of over Nigeria. That was President Nigeria. That was President Muhammadu. Who rest in perfect peace. Thank you. Muhammadu. Who rest in perfect peace. Thank you.
Minister. Minister. Next is
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCON, the leader of the, and there are days rare, sacred, a day of the, and there are days rare, sacred, a day of gratitude, a day of, they will honor his explaining that late President Buhari as an implementer, and now at the highest level of policy making under the able leadership of His Excellency President Bola, unshakable, vulnerable population. Buhari will be remembered. He deepened our institutions and strengthened Nigerian sovereignty. He advanced humanitarian response for the underserved population. Offering dignity to the displaced. As trafficking, averted sanctuaries, migrants, against attempts, and over 14 years organizes women